The current weather is 80 degrees Fahrenheit with clear skies and sun. Today's forecast has some sun and thunderstorms, with a high of 93 degrees and a low of 77 degrees. And here's your news.
So this is Miss Grace, and I talked about her in a previous video about her life after death experience. And I thought some of you might be wondering how she was doing and whether, being alive was a good thing for her. And, I can't read her mind, but I can say that she has seemed to be pretty happy and pretty much just like she was before she had the near-death experience, or the actual after-death experience, where she died and was resuscitated after 12 minutes of CPR. She really seems pretty much the same as she was before that. Now, do I know what's really going on in her brain? No. But anyway, this is our life now, and so I've already talked about her various machines and stuff in the first video, but in that video she was in her chair. So it's morning and this is her sleeping. She was awake a lot during the night, but she had a pretty good night, which means I actually got to sleep. So over here is her pulse ox machine, so you can see that her oxygen level is good. It's 99%. Her heart rate is really low, 58. That's because she's super relaxed right now, which is not a bad thing. And that's her suction machine that we use to suction out of this thing. It goes directly into this little tube that goes into her throat right there. So the suction goes down her throat, this little tube called a catheter. It's covered in plastic to keep it sterile, and when you push this button it sucks, but first you have to turn on this really loud machine, and just so you can see how loud it is, pretty noisy, but it's it's a pump, and it uses air to suck the mucus right out of her throat and keep her from choking. So this thing right here, this is what you call the circuit, and it goes to the ventilator, and the circuit, like this thing right here, has a little opening in it so that some air can get in and out, because sorry Grace, did I bother you? You have to have a little bit of ventilation in the circuit. And then this right here is a sensor wire, and it measures the pressure and the temperature inside this hose. It's really quite amazing. Good morning, Grace. You gonna wake up? Wake up, Gracie. Time to get up. There's my girl. There she is. Good morning, sweetie. She's always happy in the morning. That's my sweet girl. Hi, Grace. She stretches. She doesn't move around a lot, so we have to position her, which I will do after I put this phone on a little tripod, but right now it's in my hands. So anyway, this is the machine. See, that alarm is telling me pressure line disconnected, which is actually not happening, but you get all these alarms when the machine isn't happy with the settings, the sensor settings it's receiving. So that causes us to have to check and see what's going on. Why are these alarms going off? So a big part of life on a trach and a ventilator is checking alarms. So the hardest part about being a mom and a caregiver of a person on a ventilator is that you must be constantly vigilant of the machine and finding out what's going on, because she can literally die if there's a malfunction. And unfortunately, alarms go off all the time, like every day, all day. Some days there's fewer alarms, some days there's more. And it is, it's an electronic machine, so it's really sensitive, and you can dial it in to be more sensitive or less sensitive. But, thankfully, most of the alarms are not a big deal, but many times she does have like a thick plug of mucus in her throat, and she needs to be suctioned, and that's what's causing the alarm to go off. So you have to, she needs 24-hour surveillance to help her, with her needs, because she can't do it herself. Now, other people who might be more able might be able to suction themselves and take care of their own ventilator, but obviously that this is not her only problem. She was already disabled when she got the trach. She was already unable to take care of herself. So this just added a new level of care, which is a lot more. So what I do, so I'm gonna just describe my day. So I wake up and I get her feeding ready. So that's her feeding bag, which is a formula in a bag with a long tube, and it connects to her, this is called a Mickey button. It has a little valve, so you just plug in the end of the tube, and you have to make sure it's in there right, because if it's not connected, you will feed the bed. And I'm sure there's plenty of people watching this video who know about feeding the bed. And that's what happens when the valve becomes disconnected and all the formula goes all over the bed or the floor or the wheelchair. It's not fun. It has a lovely smell, like baby formula. But anyway, so now her feeding, see it dripping in that little thing? Her formula will go in slowly, and she'll get her breakfast. And I'm gonna use her automatic bed here, raise her up so her head's a little higher. And I actually need to reposition her, but I'll have to put the phone down just so she can get a little bit more comfortable. And I'm gonna put her on her other side to take the pressure off of her hips. Good morning, Grace. So, does she look miserable? Does she look like she wishes she was not alive? No, she's happy. She is happy to be alive. And, everybody, like, we have our moments where we're like, okay, what's the point of being alive? But that's just how life is, good times and bad, right? And I think it's that way for her too, even though she can't tell us. I'm sure that she's experiencing pleasure as well as boredom and other emotions, just like we do. So the other thing that I do while I'm making her formula is I get her medications ready, and I also have to change this gauze around this gauze right here. It gets kind of gunky. Now see this little blue thing on here? That's something that we came up with. It's actually a trach tie that has had a slit cut in it, and we use it to keep the trach from coming disconnected. Because the thing about this, all this, it's just plugged in. There's nothing preventing it from coming loose. And that is the biggest problem, and what can cause death is that this can come off of the trach. So this little strap helps hold it on. But believe it or not, it can still sometimes come off of there. So you can see there's some gunk in there. That means I need to replace this. So I'm just going to pull this out like that. And that stuff, I know it looks really gross, but it is actually not, it's not infection. It's just secretions from her actual throat. So over here you see we have like all her medical supplies, and that's a little birthday thing that my sister made for her. That's me in a much younger time. So you can see Grace is a happy girl. And this was me. I ran a race with her, and she was in my jogging stroller. That's her daddy holding her. So this is Grace when she was a baby, being held by her brother. And there's me and Grace running. So there's other pictures. There's one when she was really small, and there's an older one. So anyway, back to this. Is it's called a split gauze, and it just goes underneath and around her trach. So I'm going to pause this and replace it. Okay, so I replaced the gauze, which is really no big deal. You just slide it up underneath there, under her trach, and it just protects her skin. And it also kind of makes the trach fit a little bit tighter. So I'm going to try to reposition her, and hopefully the camera will not fall over. Right, Grace? So what I have to do is turn her on to the other side. Oh, and she's really wet, which I really need to change her diaper, but I'm not going to do that on camera because I don't think that would be good. Where are you going? There we go. Now she can roll over. She can stretch her back and her legs. And now she's going to cough a little because it's also time to do a breathing treatment. So part of dealing with the trach is this. You have to keep this positioned in a way. Now, not everyone may have this problem, but for Grace, if it's up, it's in the wrong position, it makes her gag. So I have to make sure that it kind of turned down like that. So she likes to put her head back like that. Now I can. She was kind of giving me trouble. There we go. Now with the trach, it's obviously is going right down into her trachea, So any kind of pressure on here makes her gag, just like it would if you were to, um, stick something down your throat. It would not be comfortable. So I'm gonna need to give her a breathing treatment, which is kind of noisy. So I'll probably turn the video off for that. So I just wanted to talk about, you know, I feel like sometimes people think that I have no life. And I must admit that when Grace first came home from ICU with the new ventilator and the new trach, I did kind of feel like extremely trapped. And, um, you know, I still have days like that where I wish I could, you know, go and do things. Well, I just got back from a mini vacation, and that was a much needed respite. So anyone who's watching this, I encourage you, do whatever you can, if it's possible, to get a little break from your caregiving duties. Um, it just worked out for me. It was not really planned that far in advance, like a couple weeks in advance, and it just worked out. So I'm very thankful for that. And now I'm back on duty. But what I realized that on vacation I had a great time, but you know, it's not, you can't live your life on vacation. And some people seem to do that, but this is my life, and taking care of my daughter is, I'm fine with that. That's what I have to do. That's what God, the purpose I have in my life, God gave me, is my daughter Grace. And I also have 5 sons that are young adults, and some of them are older adults. And I love all my kids, and that's my life. My life is not about myself. It's really about my kids, and one of them just happens to be extremely time consuming. But I mean, you learn little tricks and stuff, like we have a baby monitor, which the camera's up there on the wall. And so just like when you have a toddler or whatever, you can take that monitor in the other room, and so I don't have to stay in this room all the time. Sometimes I do, because it's actually quite comfortable. Like, I got this great chair. This chair is a rocker and a recliner, and it's very comfortable. And I have a TV in here, and I watch TV, I listen to podcasts, I read, I do things on my phone, I write. I'm a blogger, so I write my blogs, and I'm also writing a book right now. So my life is, has been changed, yes. But the biggest change is that I don't go a lot of places. But, at my age, I'm going to be 60 this year. It's like, you know, I don't have to go a lot of places anymore to be happy. So if you're a younger mom and you're just starting this journey, it's probably going to be different for you. And I'm not saying that my life is like a model or something. Do what makes you happy, and thankfully, on another note, I do have some nursing care. It's it's not every day, and it's not even the same every week. Hoping to get a little bit more help eventually, but that's a reality that I wanted to talk about in this video, is the difficulty of getting nursing care. Let me go turn off that nebulizer. So, something I have discovered is that people who have pediatric, like if your child is under 18, you're probably going to have a lot easier time getting a nurse, but even then, it's hard to find good nurses. And I've heard the most horrible stories of nurses that don't come to work, or they abuse your child, or, you know, just when you get someone you like, they leave and go somewhere else. But I've also heard a lot of great stories where the nurses become part of the family and they stay with the family for years and years. So, I'm just thankful to God for the nurse that I have now, and she is a true blessing to our family. And yeah, I wish she could just live here and help me all the time, but actually, you know, I mean, even 4 days a week, or sometimes 2 or 3 days a week, is a big help. So, um, you know, Grace, Grace was 23 years old when she got her trach this year, and I never had a lot of help. I never had an actual nurse, and she has always been in a wheelchair, tube fed. She has seizures. She takes medication. So I did all that by myself, except for some respite care from many different people throughout the years that made it possible for me to spend more time with my kids, my other kids, and, be able to actually go some places. Okay, so hang on. Time to suction. So after a breathing treatment, it kind of loosens up the secretions, and that's when the suction machine is necessary. So I don't know if the camera is on her or me, my butt, but move her back onto her back for now so she can uh, be in a more upright position. She can kind of cough up some of this stuff. So, so that's an example right there of, you know, caregiving with a ventilator, is that, you have to be on hand to suction as needed. And that's why, a lot of people are afraid to get a trach or a ventilator. Sorry, I know that's really loud. Let me see what I'm filming here. Okay, now she is on her back, and she's okay now. She just needed a little bit of suctioning. So, back to what I was saying, what is life really like? It's it's like any other life. It's a process of learning and adapting and making modifications to your schedule, getting help from other people, talking to friends, venting to friends. I have a best friend that I talk to every day, um, on the phone and by messenger, and she lives in another state, so I don't even get to see her, but she's my, one of my greatest support system. The one, she is a support system for me, as well as my husband who works full time, and um, then when he comes home from work, he helps me with Grace too, and on the weekends he takes turns. That's the hardest thing, is that when we don't have a nurse, we can't both leave the house at the same time, which is, you know, over half the time. Before we got the nurse, we couldn't leave the house together at all. So one of us always had to be on duty. So when Grace was in the hospital and she first got the trach, and she was being taken care of at the hospital, um, you know, that was different. Then once she came home, I was actually working part-time at that time. So my husband would have to come home from work, and then
I would leave and go to work, and he would take care of her until I got home around 8 o'clock, and then, he went to bed, and then I took care of her all night. And when she first got home from the hospital, she required a lot of suctioning, and we were still learning how to use the ventilator, and it was alarming all the time. And here's something that they won't tell you, okay? Here's probably the most interesting part of the story is that the once she was discharged from the hospital, um, we really got zero help from any doctors. Her tracheostomy was done. Oops, sorry about that. In the ICU, well, in the hospital, while she had been in the hospital with pneumonia. So that meant it was done by a doctor that worked for the hospital. And here's something that is a key thing here. It's going to be very difficult to find a doctor who will take on the case of managing the care of the trach and the ventilator when you get out of the hospital. So if you're in the hospital now and you're watching this and either you or your child is just got put on a ventilator and you're going to go home with the ventilator, you need to be aware that you need to find a doctor who will take on your case. And of course they have to take your insurance, but the big thing is if they didn't do the surgery, then they don't want to take you as a patient. So Grace has been home since March 13th, and she has had the same trach since then, since a month before that it got put in. And she still has that same trach in her throat, which they're supposed to be changed out, fairly regularly. But I can't do it myself because I haven't been taught how to do it, and she had a difficult surgery, like she had to have it done twice. So her case is different. Like, I'm not going to give you the whole picture, but her case is unique, and she needs to be in a hospital to have her trach changed. I didn't know any of that when I brought her home. So it's been a process of finding out, oh, I got to find someone who's willing to do this. And I called all these doctors, no one would do it. Finally, I had to call the ICU, and they gave me the name of a doctor. And this is the place. It's not the same doctor, but it's the group of physicians who did the second surgery, and they were willing to see her. So she has an appointment this week to change that trach out. So actually, I don't know if they're going to change the trach. It might just be a consultation. But hopefully, they're going to change her trach out because it needs to be changed. But that's just one of the many holes in the healthcare system that I have discovered since she got this trach and ventilator. So I have talked to a doctor, a pulmonologist with a lot of experience, and he has said, the odds are not good that she's going to ever be off of that ventilator. So this is our life now. And my point in making this video is I wanted to say that being a caregiver, while it can be extremely exhausting, like I said, sleep deprivation is a real thing, and too much of that can lead to depression. If you can get a little help just so you can get some breaks from the caregiving, this is a life that it's rewarding, I mean, I never thought this was the kind of life I would have, but Grace is my daughter, and I love her, and I'm going to take care of her. I mean, as long as it takes. So Is there a better life? Not really. I mean, as a Christian, God calls me to a life of service, and He has chosen this life for me. He has provided me with a job of serving my daughter. And, for the past 33 years, I've been serving my husband and my children and my family, my mom and my sisters and brothers and my community. And this is what life is about. Life is not about seeking, selfish, just a selfish path of pleasure. That's the world. That's what the world thinks is going to bring them happiness, but that is not the life of a Christian person. We believe that, God gave us a higher purpose in life, and that's where true joy is found. True joy is not found in selfishness. That's an empty life, and it's never going to be fulfilling. That's why you have to just keep on looking for more, buying things, searching for more intense, adventures and pleasures, and it can even lead to, depravity and doing, drugs and doing all kinds of things. That's not going to bring you ultimate happiness. That is a path to death. So, do I have a life? Does Grace have a life? Yes, it's a simple life. It's a simple life of faith and trusting God, and not dwelling on the things that I don't have or get to do. And do people have it even worse? Yes, there's so many people. I am thankful. I am grateful that even though it's a difficult process, that I do live in America and I do have access to health care. So anyway, I want to wrap this up, and I just want you to focus on Grace. She is a person. She is a happy person. And I'm going to take her out of this bed in a few minutes, and I'm going to put her in her wheelchair, and she will enjoy her day doing her thing. I mean, God brought her back from her cardiac arrest for a reason. I believe that. So who am I to decide, oh no, she shouldn't have been brought back? She was alive, and she's alive now, and I'm going to take care of her as long as God wants me to. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little video, and let's just end with this. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not boast. Love is not proud. Love is not rude. Love always trusts. Love always hopes. Love never fails. And that's what I'm trying to do right now, is just love my daughter. Thanks for listening and watching our little story here, and please like and leave a comment below if you have a special needs child. I would love to hear about your story. And you can also find me on blueskiesandgreenpastures.com. That's my blog. And I also have a podcast under the same name, which I haven't made any podcasts lately, but you might find something there you like. So thanks for checking out my channel today, and God bless you.